Parsha opens with the pasuk Ve'ele hamishpatim asher tasim lifnehem. Rashi, well-known Rashi, tells us Ve'ele hamishpatim. Why the vav in Ve'ele hamishpatim? Kol makom shenemar ele. If it would have just said ele without the vav, pasalat rishonim. So then it's a new topic. Meaning we had Parashat Yitro, we had the Aseret Dibrot, Matan Torah. Yitro finishes off, and then Eila Mishpatim, new topic. Comes the Torah and says, Avav ve'Eila Mishpatim, Mosif ala Rishonim. It's a continuation, it's a run-on sentence, which means that the whole Parsha of Mishpatim is meant to be read as one with Yitro, to tell us, Ma Harishonim Misinai, Af Elu Misinai. Just like the first ones were from Sinai, so too these latter ones. Just like Yitro took place at Sinai, so did this whole Parashat Mishpatim take place at Sinai. The question is asked that, why do you need to say, I need the Vav to tell me that Mishpatim was said at Sinai while they were still at Har Sinai? I mean, we know that not only was Mishpatim at Har Sinai, but the next Parsha, all of Vayikra, right? How do I know that? Because when you get to the beginning of Bamidbar, the fourth book, right, what did it say over there? Vayom Hashem Bamidbar Sinai, and then it goes into Shemitah. So we all know the famous Rashi, Ma inin Shemitah etzel Har Sinai. Why is the Torah singing out Shemitah at Har Sinai? To tell us that just like Shemitah was given at Har Sinai, all of the mitzvahs are given at Har Sinai. So what do I need? Two midrashim. So I need one medrash to tell me that just like Shemitah was given at Sinai, so all the mitzvahs were given at Sinai. So then why do I need the Vav over here? Ve'ele, to tell me that just like Yitro was given at Har Sinai, all the mitzvahs that we have in Yitro, that deal with the Mizbeach, they deal with various mitzvahs over there, how to build the Mizbeach, so too Mishpatim is at Har Sinai. We know Mishpatim is at Har Sinai. Everything up to Bamidbar was at Har Sinai. So the answer that's given is Shemitah, just like the end of Yitro, the laws of Mizbeach, and we have a lot of the other laws as well from the Aseret Dibros. So you have two categories of mitzvot. You have mitzvot ben Adam lamakom. You have the mitzvahs between man and Hashem, and you have the mitzvahs ben Adam lachaver, between man and his fellow. When the Medrash tells us in Bamidbar that just like Shemitah was at Har Sinai, so too the other mitzvahs at Sinai, I would have thought, you know what, maybe when it says, just like Shemitah is at Har Sinai, the other mitzvahs at Har Sinai, I would have thought, you know what, maybe that's referring to the mitzvahs that are ben Adon Lamakom, because Shemitah is a mitzvah between us and Hashem. It's not between us and our fellow. And so therefore you could actually say that those mitzvahs that are between us and Hashem, those mitzvahs that I wouldn't be able to use my intuition to derive at, because you can't use intuition to figure out how you're supposed to worship a deity, a Hashem, a Ribono Shel Olam, a God. I could figure out without the Torah how to act to my fellow, to my neighbor, to my wife, to my children. That I could figure out. I could use my own sense of morality. So maybe I would have thought that the mitzvahs that have been Adon L'Makom, like Shemitah, and how to build a Mizbeach, which was at the end of Yitro, those are at Har Sinai. But Mishpatim, this coming parsha that deals with all ben Adon L'Chavera, how to treat your neighbor, how to treat your family, how to treat your Eved Ivri, right? How to treat each other. Maybe I don't need Sinai for that. I don't need Har Sinai for that. I could figure that out on my own. Every person, if he's a decent human being, right, could figure out how to honor your parent, how to treat your neighbor, don't steal, don't murder. I need the Aseret Dibros for that. I could figure that any basic, normal, good human being wouldn't steal, wouldn't rape, wouldn't commit adultery, wouldn't bear false testimony. So with the Medrash, by adding the Vav, right, what Rashi is saying is, by adding the Vav, what does it mean, Mosif ala Rishonim? Ma harishonim misinai, af elu misinai? It could be it's referring to the two tablets, meaning that what? That just like, we know that even the two tablets, they ask, why were the Aseret Dibros divided into two different stones? Because they say that, many say that the first five are ben Adon L'Makom, the second five are ben Adon L'Chavera. So again, it could be that you might want to say that maybe only those mitzvahs that have been Adon L'Makom were given at Sinai by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Maybe those mitzvahs that have been Adon L'Chavera, you don't need Sinai for that. So that's why I know the pasuk over here. It's not enough to tell me that Shemitah was given at Har Sinai. You have to tell me ve'ela mishpatim, that even the mishpatim, the laws between a man and his fellow, between neighbor to neighbor, how you treat another human being. You also have to realize that that's from Har Sinai. And it's not because we wouldn't be able to figure these, we wouldn't be able to intuit these things on our own. We would be able to intuit them on our own. In fact, the Netziv in Hemek Dover says, right at the end of the parsha, we say Nasa v'nishma. So, the Malachim went, we're very impressed that we said Nasa v'nishma. We put Nasa before Nishma. We said we will do and then we will hear. So the Netziv understands that the Nasa v'nishma is actually why would you say Nasa before Nishma? So one of the answers is it's actually referring to the mitzvahs ben Amal Chavera. It's referring to the mitzvahs ben Amal Chavera. Mitzvahs ben Adal Chavera, we're already doing them. That's why they said Nasa first, because we're already doing them. But then there's Nishma. You should do it l'shem shamayim. That's the Nishma to the Nasa. What the Medrash is telling us by saying ve'ela mishpatim, Medrash is telling us that all the laws of ben Adal Chavera, which you would want to do them anyway if you're a normal, wholesome, decent human being, which the Torah assumes that we are. So you're going to want to do them anyway. But the Torah is telling us, don't just do them for your humanity, because your conscience anyway tells you to do it. Do it l'shem shamayim. Do it because those are also part of the Aser Sedibros. Those were the second luchot. Those are the last 5. From 6 to 10 is ben Adal Chavera. So understand, and also all these mishpatim that we're going to read about in this week's parsha, realize that those are given at Sinai, and therefore when you do them, so then you should have kavanah. Right? When we say mitzvahs tzrichas kavanah, that mitzvahs you should do with kavanah so that you get reward. You shouldn't just do the mitzvahs b'kavanah that don't make sense to you. Certainly over there you need kavanah, or else why are you doing it? You're a fool if you do it. You're doing something that doesn't make any rational sense. For sure you should be doing it for kavanah, but even those mitzvahs that make sense, also do it for kavanah. Do it because it's a mitzvah, not just because it makes sense. Of course, once the Torah actually mandates things that come naturally to us, mandates them as mitzvahs, then obviously the Torah wants us to take it to a higher level. And there's a beautiful story. Actually, I never knew this, but Rav Galinsky brings down in his book that Rabbi Yisrael Salanter's Yortzeit is Chaf Hei Shvat, which is yesterday. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter was the champion of the Muslim movement. And he was a champion not only in Ben Adal Chavera, but in sensitivity to others, in behaving in a way that shows profound sensitivity to others. He stood for Ben Adal Chavera. And it always falls in Parashat Mishpatim. And he says, because Parashat Mishpatim stands for Ben Adal Chavera, and that's what Rabbi Yisrael Salanter stood for. And he, obviously, because the mitzvahs Ben Adal Chavera are part of Torah, they're not just part of our moral humanity, but it's part of Torah. So then it's taken to another level. So I'll just leave off with the beautiful story. So he said one time the story was that he had a Talmud who was very wealthy. He had a student who was very wealthy, and it was his student's dream to host Rabbi Yisrael Salanter for a Friday night meal. And he shepherded him and he said, please, Rebbe, come for Shabbos. I want you to see how I conduct my Shabbos table. It's beautiful, etc. The food and it'll just be amazing. So he said, fine, but on one condition. You let me run the Shabbos table. So he figured, wow, even better. What is chus to have Rabbi Yisrael Salanter run my Shabbos table in my house? Wow. So they got to the house on Friday night. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter raced through Shalom Aleichem, 1 time each, not 3 times each stanza. He raced through Kiddush. They went and they hurriedly washed Netil Sidayim. He gave out the bread. He immediately asked for the fish course to be served. And the Balabait is sort of like motioning to the Zmir's book. Like Rabbi Yisrael ignored him. No Zmir, straight to the main course. Straight after that, straight to the dessert. No Torah. He says, what? No Torah, no Zmiris, nothing. It was the fastest meal that this Balabait ever had on a Friday night in his life. And so Rabbi Yisrael said to the hostess, are there any more courses? He says, no, that's it. We finished. And like the Balabait is beside himself. We finished in record time. It wasn't what he thought a Shabbos night meal with Rabbi Yisrael Salanter would be. So in the end, Rabbi Yisrael, after they benched, etc., so then he says, could you call in the cook? He obviously employed a Jewish woman who cooked and would serve the meal, and then she would go home after the meal. So Rabbi Yisrael says to the woman, he says, I just want to apologize to you that I didn't give you a chance to rest in between courses, that I kept on rushing you. I rushed you. Of course, I didn't leave any gap for you to stop and rest. You know what she said to him? She said, Rabbi, I'm the one that have to thank you. Every week, the meal over here is so long with all the Zmirs and Divrei Torah that by the time I get home and my husband's been waiting for me, he's already conked out on the couch. And our Shabbos meal's ruined, and this time I'm so happy that you rushed the meal because now I'm gonna get home on Friday night, the earliest ever have, and he'll be happy and I'll be happy and we'll have a proper Shalom Bayis. We'll have a beautiful meal together. So then after that, Rabbi Yisrael turned to his Talmud and said, that's what I wanted to teach you. He said, I wanted to show you that, you want to run a beautiful Shabbos table and you want to have Zmiris and you want to have Divrei Torah, fine, but not at the expense of this poor woman. You drag out your meal and then you've ruined her meal. So Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, because you don't get that type of sensitivity from your regular sense of humanity. That comes because of Ve'ela Mishpatim. When the Torah says treating others with respect is a Torah directive, if it's a mitzvah, Ma Harishonim Bar Sinai, just like the first side of the Aseret Dibros were clearly given at Har Sinai because they were Ben Adon L'Makom, so too all the other mitzvahs that are Ben Adon L'Chavero, between man and man, are also there, so you have to treat them with the same sensitivity that you would treat your Ben Adon L'Makom. And that's what the lesson that Rabbi Yisrael was telling him. That's why it's so important for us to treat each other with sensitivity and respect, because by doing so, we don't only foster achdus, unity and love between, among Klal Yisrael, which is sorely and desperately needed for our success, as we've seen in the last few months. But it also brings us closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, no less, and in some ways even more than a regular Ben Adam L'Makom. Because as the Rosh points out, every time you do a mitzvah of chesed, you do a mitzvah ben adol lechaver, you're also doing a mitzvah ben adol l'makom. Every mitzvah ben adol lechaver, every mitzvah between us and our fellow, also is a mitzvah, since it came from Hashem, as we see ve'ela mishpatim. So therefore, you're also doing a mitzvah for Hashem. Hashem wants us to treat each other with love and respect and with kindness. Be'ez Hashem, by doing that, we'll not only get closer to each other, we'll get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we'll be zocheh to the Geula b'mehera b'yameinu. Amen.